This property is a deal here in the market. It just came up here maybe about an hour or two, and I'm not going to just sit back and let you keep on scrolling, right? Or going through videos without knowing about this property. And this is time sensitive. I get it. I'm posting it out here on social media, and you'll probably see this after the fact. But understand this, I am the broker that can get you the deals. And so if you reach out to me here at this phone number, which I know it's backwards, but it's 630-777-4597 at any given moment in the future from this video, I can point you to the deals that are happening not only that day, but even in real time. Okay, so let's just take a look at this deal. You know how they say, let's get ready to go and let's do this with me. Well, why don't we comp this property with me right now live? Okay, so let me show you here what property I'm talking about here. Let me pull it up. All right, you're gonna see it here. All right, this property is 743 Bank Street. Now here in the Western Suburbs of Aurora, okay? If you're out of the area, well, we're out of luck, right? We're gonna just go with what we have here. But this property just hit the market here about an hour or two ago. It literally says 2 hours right there, and this property is going for $179,900. Okay, so what we do when we take a look into these comps, we have to take into account many different things. It's not just about how does the property look like. I think I can make a good deal. You have to take into account the rental figures, what the mortgage amount would be if you were financing this property. You also have to look into the comparables, how they look like. Are they apples to apples? What's the square footage? What's the bedroom and bath? I know that some people might think this is overcomplicating it, but when it comes to making a deal here, when it comes to getting a property under contract and doing a deal with hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, then it makes sense for you to be as thorough as possible when it comes to this. So I'm no way gonna apologize for making that being this thorough. Okay, here on the side you can see where the property sits here. It's in the east side of Aurora. It's a 60505 area code here. Zip code, sorry. And so what we have here is the east side of Aurora. Now, nevertheless, though, this area does have good comparables, okay? And that's what we're going to look at in just a little bit. But let me just show you some of the pictures here. As you can see, this property is looking a little rough. And like I spoke with an investor even today about investment properties, and they were complaining about the windows. They were complaining about the way that property looks, and I said, listen, you're supposed to have this looking like this. You're an investor, right? We want the house to look ugly. Otherwise we wouldn't be buying it. So don't ever get discouraged about house looking rough, especially if you're an investor. This is what you want. But I get it. This savvy investor knew how to negotiate, and so when you complain about things like that to the seller's going to be like, oh well, I guess you're right. So this is a savvy investor, and so that's why they talk the way they talk. They know what they're doing, right? But anyway, this is how this property looks like, and as you can see here and here, I'm over here calculating some of these numbers as I look at the property, and I'll kind of go over this a little bit here with you as I will be looking at the photos and doing some of the rehab cost estimates, at least from a perspective of a realtor. Obviously, I'm not a contractor, but I try to learn as much as possible when it comes to repair costs, and when I study different sources so that I can get at least an accurate number. Usually my numbers also agree with an investor numbers. Okay, so again, taking a look at this property here, what are we looking for? We're going to look at what they're asking for. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to write in here what they're looking for. $180,000 is what they're asking for right here. Okay, you can see that 180. What are the comps looking like? All right, so I'm going to pull out here my MLS. Right now here I already did the math, or I already did the criteria looking for properties in this area. Now you can see here in the map, let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. I don't think I can. It's fine, but if you can see here, that's the map. I can't even move it. There it is. I just zoom in right there, and that's where the comps are, right? Imagine that's in the epicenter right there, the subject property, and these are the homes that sold here within the last 6 months. Okay, so if you look at these properties, I'm going to scroll down here. This spot right here, let me see if I can focus on it. That's where the majority. This is where the homes are, the comparables, and this is what the most homes sold for. Sorry about the stuttering here, but this is what the max sold for here in this area. $395,000 is what the highest went for. It just closed about a week ago here on Jackson Street. Again, it went for $395,000. It sold very quickly in 6 days. And if you want to take a look here at the photos of that property, that's what it looks like. Very, very dark color in the house here. Dark gray. Looks like, at least the first photo looks very dark. looks like it was in the shade, but here's a great photo of the color, gray and black trim here, but look at the interior. It almost looks brand new. And I was even thinking that this was a brand new build, but it actually wasn't. That property was built in 1948, but they just did a remodel. $395, right? The next one closest to it is $360,000, but it was built in 2009. This property was. You can even tell just by looking at this from the exterior, but 2009, that was literally about 17 years ago, roughly 16, 17 years ago. And that's why I did that video as well, asking when does a new construction stop being a new construction? And according to the information that I was gathering there, an appraiser would stop, taking into account the new construction tag, I guess you could say, yeah, once somebody starts living in that property. So again, if you are considering, hey, is this property going to be considered a new? Should I just toss it because my subject property is not a new construction? You would say, you know what? If it's 3 to 5 years past the date, then it's that label of new construction is no longer valid, right? And also, it's just like a car, right? A car is brand new, but once someone drives it off the lot as a purchase, that is considered to be used vehicle, right? And in the same way here with homes, when a person starts living in the property and they start, having that wear and tear, it stops being that. So there are some folks that like to stay within the range of like 10, 20, 30 years around. But again, if that comp starts blending in with the other comps in the area, the year build stops being such a big factor. Obviously, the lumber is new, the plumbing is new, the electrical should be good, so that does have a little bit of an effect on the value. However, again, that's what we got. So the final comp I'm going to look at here, because we're comping that property that is a hot market that just came on the market right now. This is the final comp I want to look at, another similar home, and take a look at that. Let me take a look here on the inside. As you can see, it does have some of the new fresh carpet, new fresh paint with the white trim, always looking good there for these homes. And that property ended up going for $314,000. It was in the market for about 10 days, according to this here. So 314, 360, 395 are the most, the highest comps here. So I'm trying to figure out an ARV. I settled with this, right? 395, even though that's the highest number, it is a 4-bed, 2.5 bath. My subject property is into that. My subject property is right here. It is a 3-bed, 1 bath. So we're going to make some adjustments, right? So if this one is 4, we're going to adjust it $10,000 below, so 395. We're also taking away 5,000 because of the concessions. So now we're at 380 minus the extra bath and a half. So we're roughly about 365, 370, and that is in line with the 360 over here. And now if we take into account the 314 because of the new construction, newish construction, comparing that to a 1900 home, I still feel that maybe 340-ish, 330 is a more conservative ARV number, and we're taking that into account. So now I'm writing down this property is 340,000 ARV, right? Now I'm going to bring in my calculators here because I do want to start typing in that information. So I'm using the Chicago calculator here, mortgage calculator, Chicago Agent 1, and I'm typing in right here the 330 ARV. All right, move that one to the side so I can continue to work on these things. Looks like I'm not going to be able to do that now. my browsers are acting up, but that's what we got. All right, now let me go ahead and start looking at some of these photos. Bring up the subject property, and what I start doing now is I'm looking at photos. Granted, it's just photos. I'd rather walk the property physically and take a look at the home. Yes, I would love to do that, but all we got right now is just a photo. So thankfully, this listing, even though it has photos that are sideways and this goes here and there, we just got to work and get our little workout, a neck workout. At least we're gonna get some strength here, but that's the fact. We're gonna calculate some numbers, and then let's just run through some of these at the moment. Here we go. So looking at the exterior, I'm gonna add about maybe 4K here for the exterior paint. Let's see. The sidewalk right here doesn't really bother me as much. I'm thinking, hey, somebody might think about this, but look at this roof, right? This roof here looks rough. Now it could be just barely rained down, but it looks old to me. I wouldn't even consider this. So I'm gonna immediately tack on $15,000 for the roof. Okay. The side of the house here, I do see the gutters. They are looking decent for now. And again, it depends on the individual investor, what they want to do with it. Some don't want to fix it, some others do. So that's an extra cost. But I'm just gonna assume that we're gonna keep this. Again, every investor is different. I'm just putting in my broker, opinion to this. So it doesn't mean that it's set in stone. This is the actual number. This is just my opinion, and I include it so that I can give context to somebody in case they're looking to make that move or make that decision and go see the house. All right, so I'm taking a look here at the yard. As you can see, there's a lot of leaves. Looks maybe like there's a dog here or some whatnot. Usually dogs like to mess around with the grass and whatnot. So I'm assuming that it's going to be about $2,000 to fill it with sod here, make it look good for the springtime here. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and just look at the interior photos. All right, it looks like this property was a subject of possible rehab. As you can see here in the photos, that does have that new flooring on it, and I don't know if it's the cheap laminate. It looks like it's luxury vinyl plank to me. It looks great. They did a great job starting this project. You know, it just looks like they never finished it. And I also see here the ceiling tiles are looking a little rough. I've also seen other photos here of imperfections in the paint, so I'm going to assume that we're going to just go in here and paint all the walls in the trim. Because of that, I'm going to add $4,000 per level, and I'm going to add $3 for the upstairs level as well for the paint. So we get that out of the way. Here, this color here, you know, you would think, wow, this looks amazing, and you might also think it looks terrible. It's very specific, but I'm going to just paint over this, right? I'm assuming that I'm the investor here, so I'm going to do that. Here's a fireplace. It's been sealed off, but that could be removed easily. You can also paint over the bricks so that way it can look fresh again. And now we're getting into the kitchen. Usually the kitchen for myself, I know I'm going a little fast here. I apologize. You could slow this video down in the YouTube in their settings. But going back to this, usually the kitchens, I like to just have a rule of thumb of it being about 10,000 give or take here for a great project. And if it needs a little bit less work, then I go with about maybe $5,000 to $7,000, okay? Give or take, obviously. And I always, ask the investors what are the numbers that they usually go with, so that way I can have some sort of idea, okay? I always like to learn things. But for this one, I'm gonna add $10,000, okay? That's including the appliances, that's including all the countertops and even the floors, okay? That's what I'm including. So now we're going up, we're not actually upstairs yet. I'm just seeing here Santa Claus trying to go through the little room here, the closet. Am I going to make any adjustments or any addition to the rehab costs here? Again, I already included the paint. I would add $1,000 here for the doors in the interior of the house. Each door roughly goes about $300. So if there's about 3 or 4 doors I'm going to fix, I'm going to add about $1,000 to it. Okay, I do see here as well that the windows, and that's a big one here too, when you're considering the repairs of the house, you got to make sure that the windows as well are in fairly good condition. If they're not, then you should probably, anticipate there to be about maybe a $300 to $400 repair per window. So in an average typical house, I'm seeing about maybe 10 to 12 to 16 windows per. You multiply that by 400 or so, and you might come up with about $6,000, $7,000. So I like to just use the rule of thumb to keep it at about $7K or so. So if we're gonna replace all these windows, I'm thinking about $6K in this case. Okay, so here we go. We're still adding numbers. All right, now for the bathrooms, again, just so that you don't get tripped up about, hey, well, what about the tub? What about the toilet? What about the sink? What I'm gonna do here is just usually do another rule of thumb, right? The kitchen's 10, so the bathroom I would say is about 5,000. All right, and if it's a half bath, I would do half of 5,000, which is 2,500 or so. So that's what I'm gonna do here for this one. Is I'm going to put in 5K for this one. Right, you keeping up with me? All right, so that way I'm not getting into the weeds about the the sink or the water pressure, the P trap underneath the sink, and the PVC, like all that stuff is all bundled into one. All right, what we're looking at here, it looks to be on the main level. It looks like, I know that it looks like an exterior finish here and then an addition to the property. What can you do with this addition? Hopefully it is permitted, otherwise it's going to have to be torn down. But assuming that everything is fine, all you got to do here is just replace the door, make sure the paint is fresh. Even the floor here, you could probably, I would paint it maybe just to make it look uniform and clean, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Here, the steps, I would just add $1,000 for painting, and included with that would be a new handrail. That's basically what I would probably do here. Now we're the upstairs, right? The upstairs, we're going to replace the floor and remove carpet, right? So that's a labor cost of maybe about $1,000 to just remove the carpet. And then to add fresh new carpet, I would say about $4,000 here in the upstairs. And then we're going to just do another set of paint and trim. So I already included that from the downstairs. Hey, look at this lights, it's just hanging here, it's hanging out. Hey, at least you got a little spotlight going here. So that's what we got here for that property. Obviously the mess is going to be gone. If there's a mess involved, and if it conveys with the property, I just add about $1,000 extra to rent the bin outside, and also for the labor, I would say that. So at this point, I'm not going to include that because it's not in the contract specifically. This looks to be, the exterior. I do see the angle here of the rafters in the roof. It does have enough space. It does have a closet. I do see the egress window, so that is counted as a bedroom. But again, we're going to remove the carpet and whatnot. We already included all of that. This is still the upper level, it looks like, and that's one of those extra porches they have. Again, it was a siding before, so this is it looks like an addition. As you can see, the exterior. I've seen houses that actually look like this here in the east side of Aurora. All right, going back downstairs now. This is what used to be a walkout. Remember, these were added on. Now, as I'm seeing these photos, I do see that this house has a lot of additions to this property. This was a walkout basement, right? So they added all this. Remember, this house is over 100 years old. So in that span of 100 years, someone had a great idea to cover it up and keep this like this, you know? So that's the way it is, right? But anyway, and obviously look, seeing the paint right here, it looks like there were dogs here before as he did this with the paint and they scratched it up here and there. So that it is what it is. Look, a lot of repair needs to be done here. So what I would have imagined, what I would assume, it's probably 1.5 for this repair there, and then, you know, let's add another 1,000 for the door. Let's just throw it in there. Just add a couple thousand here. I mean, it's nothing, no big deal, right? We got money. We can just throw it around like it's candy, whatever. So anyway, we're going here and we're just looking. All right, this box right here. All right, it is a fuse box, right? So it's not up to code, right? So we got to replace that. So it costs about 1.5-ish to replace just the electric box, right? So not the whole wiring of the house. That's a different cost. We're just gonna replace this, right? Other than that, we're gonna just leave it there. When we're walking the property, I would like to look at the floor joists and the supporting beams and the wood and the foundation. I really wish I could be in that property. I really do enjoy doing this. Again, if you're watching this in the future and you're considering, if you want me to do this, especially if you're in the Western Suburbs of Chicago, I like to go into the properties and do a sort of a pseudo inspection, right? I'm not a home inspector. I have taken courses and training with home inspections, and even now, even as a realtor, many years into this, I still am enthused and interested in home inspections. So I do like to go in there with my lights. You're never, left in the dark when you're walking in property with me. We just like to inspect the home. I like to show it with you and pitch ideas to you, inspire you to, come up with a good vision for that property. Anyway, we're back in the basement here. It's an unfinished basement. It's clear. I would even tell you, hey, downstairs, you really can't do much with it. I mean, even if you added drywall and try to cover it up, the fact that the chimney is in the middle, the fact that the furnace is in the middle, all these things, even the beams, they would really get in the way of this property, so of this build. So I would discourage any work. As well, you can't really, measure what the, what the ceiling will look like. You could probably try to do, what would be the AI to try to tell you the actual ceiling height. Let me try this out here live with you. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. All right, so I'm gonna ask. All right, I had Google, Gemini do this here on the Chrome browser. Well, watch this. I'm gonna ask, what is the ceiling height? Right here. Let's just see. Let's see what it comes up with, right? So it's thinking right now. I'm using Google AI, right, to do this. Wow, the official listing for, and it already knows the address. This is crazy. Does not specify an exact ceiling height. That's true. Standard building codes. Wow, I love how they use that. Let me kind of, put it in here in perspective. Building codes, it says here, and historical context for this 902 home is suggests the following. Estimated height, 7 and 8 feet unfinished. There's an obstruction. There's prominent HVAC ductwork and steel beams down in the image significantly reduced, right? And then it says renovation potential. This listing notes a half bath rough-in, I don't know. And the basement describes the home as an excellent sweat equity. So anyway, the number I'm looking for, it says here 7 to 8 feet unfinished. That's pretty cool. I like how, the AI was able to distinguish, what the height is based on just the image by itself. Anyway, so that was interesting. And for some of those, investors, if, that matters to you, when I go to the showings, I don't only just take my key, right, to open the door. I take with me, what would be my phone, right? And it's not just any typical phone, right? Any realtor could take a phone, but I actually invested in a Z Fold, right? And I'm even thinking about getting the tri-fold so that I can have a computer ready to go. And what I have here in the fold is basically, having this as my listing information, right? I can show you photos and whatnot here. Okay, that's one of the tools that I use. Another tool that I use is a light. Now I don't have the light with me here, but I also take a laser measure. Now I'm not sure if I have that here in my briefcase or whatnot, but I do carry that measuring with me. So even today when I was doing a showing, my client was like, man, I knew the length of this room and I wish I knew the length of that. I brought out my laser measure. I said, okay, let's take a look. And I beep, I did all the measurements. And my client was very happy, right? These are things that I make sure to provide service for. So that's an amazing way that that I like to perform for my clients. Okay. So anyway, we're still running comps here. I apologize for being so verbose, but this is the way that I like to work, right? So I'm not going to apologize for being thorough with my work. Okay. So as we have here the Apple spinning plate, you typically the Apple doesn't really do this here for me, but it's okay. All right, so here we're looking at the picture of the water heater. It looks to be in great condition as we are having the nighttime mode already coming in. It's been a long day here at the office, working every single day, 10 hours a day in real estate plus. Anyway, this furnace does look like it's going to be in need of replacing soon, but we're not going to add that because if it's working and it's functioning properly, why are we going to do that, right? All right, so the next thing we got here is the basement. Okay, so we're going back outside. Again, it's a big mess here. Again, if the property conveys with the garbage, then you're going to have to do that kind of work, right, to add it to the calculation. All right, perfect. So we ended up, getting the work done here of comping, and I did have my calculator here. I was punching in numbers as I was looking at the photos, and I came up with $60,000. I like to round it up at least 10K above, just for unforeseen things and for errors and omissions, right? Making sure that we have everything right. So I would say 70K is the number, okay? So I initially had 65K. So let me just run with 65K just for the sake of this video, okay? So let me go ahead and bring up the calculator once again. Let's see if I could find it. All right, there it is. And I ran the numbers, right? 330 is my ARV. I put 180 for the purchase price because that's what they're asking for. And then here is the rehab total, 65,000. All right. And that's because I included the windows actually. In my initial assessment, I didn't put the windows in. I also plugged in the actual taxes. I put in the insurance according to insurance agents around here. Yasmin Ortega with American Family Insurance is the one who gave me this great quote, great agent. So, and we're taking this into account that it is going to be an all cash deal, okay? Yes, that matters. If you are, buying a property all cash, you should expect there to be, yes, of course, less fees, less, there's no lender fees and whatnot. So it's a quick close, yes, and you do profit more. If you do use a flip, you do flip a property and use a financing, right? Which is a bank or any other way of financing, then you should expect the closing costs to be higher. I've noticed anywhere from 10 to 15K costs eating into your profits if you do go the financing route, just in case you're wondering, okay? So with that said here, let me just show you that this property can profit a potential $57,000 just for this property alone, okay? So that's what we got here. And as far as if you're thinking about, hey, well, what can this property rent for? If you're interested in that, well, here we go. We're using Rentometer here for this property on Bank Street. It says, according to 65 comps with similar, it could rent for $2,300 a month. And I plugged in the numbers here for the mortgage, and it looks like it could go for about 18 to 19. So I was conservative, and I put in the 1,800 a month. So that basically can get you a cash flow monthly of $500. So is this a good property to buy? You better believe it. But unfortunately, because it's on the real estate market, everybody's gonna know about it, right? And I anticipate this to also have multiple bids, even possibly even right now, even hours into it. But it's okay. It's okay because we can still go in there and be as aggressive as possible. And as you know, I myself as a real estate broker here in the Western Suburbs of Chicago, am not gonna just sit back and twiddle my thumbs and just wait for another opportunity. I'm gonna be proactive and reach out to as many people as possible, finding properties even before they hit the market for you. If you call me at 630-777-4597. Thank you so much for comping this property with me. Now you see how I run the numbers. We ran this number today. If you have any properties you want me to run numbers for, you want me to represent you as a buyer's agent and hopefully represent you as a seller when you flip properties, reach out to me here and I would love to help you out, okay? Again, it's Luis Torres here. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to show you the next one. All right, until then, have yourself a great, successful week.